Is your friend with you?
Mary's
You're
muted too.
muted.
We're all muted.
Muted.
Thinking the one down there. Okay.
There you
This
go.
is Becky Snyder, and she is going to come on and start our small groups, hopefully.
Good job,
Thank
Becky.
Thank you.
Okay, so I think Tammy can hear us. So Tammy is from Our Lady of Peace. She is the Faith Formation Director at Our Lady of Peace. So she'll be hopefully jumping on soon, but she can hear us, so we'll just go forward. So I'll just introduce myself, and then I'll ask the Faith Formation team to introduce themselves as well, just so that you know who we are. I am Deacon Steve Washek. I am the Executive Director of Faith Formation for the diocese. My home parish is St. George, so that's what I do. Mary?
I'm Mary Hicken. I'm the Director for Catechesis and Sacraments, and my home parish is Our Lady of Peace.
Emma?
Hi, I'm Emma Levelnick. I am the Director for Young Adult and Youth Ministry, and my home parish is St. Francis Xavier in McCain.
Jillian?
My name is Jillian Zazik, and I'm the Associate Executive Director of Faith Formation, and my home parish is Our Lady of Peace. Mary was there first.
So Mary and Becky, you're both from St. Timothy in Curwensville, correct?
Yes.
Yes.
Mhm.
And Mary, do you do the Edge on purpose, or?
We have people that do them. They could
Okay.
not be here for this,
Okay.
but yes.
Yeah.
Mhm.
I didn't know if you did it specifically, or you're the lead. Okay, great. Irene is here too. She was here before. She's going to be joining us. She'll be listening as well. We won't be able to see her. So happy to have you, Irene. It's funny because your initials are backwards. I think this morning they were correct, but now it's SI instead of IS.
See.
So, fun. Yes. So again, welcome. This is the little training on small groups. So it would first be interesting to know where you are with your parish in terms of small groups. Have you started small groups? Are you just thinking about starting small groups? Have you tried small groups and they didn't go very well? So where are you in the process?
For us, we had small groups last year, so 23, 24. The person that was doing that, Brad Sophic, is now teaching Edge. We had some shifts in teachers and catechists, and we even had to move somebody else from our younger groups up to help with him when his partner was unable to keep going with it for health reasons in her family. So this is a restart, I guess.
Okay, great, good. Irene sent in the chat that they're setting the stage for starting small groups, so that's great. And I think Tammy's, they have a variation of small groups. And what I mean by that is they have a youth group, and in their youth group, they have a strong youth ministry. And in that, they do small groups. They want to make sure that they do small groups. They require people who are in their Edge program and Purpose program to attend at least a couple of the youth ministry events that they have. So that's how they kind of incorporate both of those, which is I think a good idea, a good way to get the people who are the students who are in Edge and Purpose used to doing small groups after confirmation. So that's what Tammy does, if I remember that correctly from when we met with them the other day. Mary, is that correct?
Yes, that is correct. And I just texted Tammy, said her chat's coming through a little garbled, and she said she's having some trouble there. So
yeah, she said yes. Sorry about the garble. Yep, she just answered yes. So really, what we wanted to do this afternoon is just to try to meet what where you are and what your questions and challenges are. So that instead of just saying this is what we're going to do, this is how you start, we just really want to meet you where you are and try to help you the best that we can. So I know that Mary sent out a survey not too long ago to all of the faith formation leaders and actually even I think the people who were implementing Edge, Purpose, and small groups, and asked some questions. And some of the questions, one of the questions were, what's your struggle? What's your challenge if you haven't started small groups? And again, we could look at some of the ones that were the most consistently spoken or reported. One, volunteer recruitment. How do we get enough volunteers for it? That was one. Two, parents. Parents have seemed to be the roadblock in terms of bringing, and so I don't know if that's parents misunderstanding that they, that should be a part of it, or parents kind of like saying, okay, my child is done, because I heard both, that parents also see this as graduation from faith formation, so they're staying put, like in terms of I'm not bringing my son or daughter anymore because they don't have to, but also parents' schedules and can't get the kids there, and so that was parents, and then the other one was sports. That seems to be a big one. The older the kids get, the more they're involved with other things outside of faith formation and things, and so getting them to come is a little bit of a challenge. And the one that I thought, some of the ones that I thought were very interesting is that there wasn't support from the pastor to run small groups. And it just didn't seem to be a priority for the parish. So those are some of the things that were reported in the survey that was handed out. Do you relate to those?
I don't know that we had a few come to the that year that we had it. Honestly, I think one of the reasons that it did even as well as it did was because it was a young man who was leading it. So it was mostly young guys, or the guys who were confirmed recently who had attended. There was one young woman, but that was also a year that confirmation was 5 boys and 1 girl. So so that makes a difference. But we were just talking about it before, that if the kids who we're inviting to small groups, if they have younger siblings still in the program, that your parents are bringing the younger siblings, then why don't you just come along? So I don't know if that will work, but it's kind of new again to us. So we'll see.
Sure. Any other, I want to get back to you, Mary. Mary Straley, not Mary Hicken, I have to be clear. So, but any other challenges that people, or they can relate to some of the challenges that were reported? Okay, good. So I know Tammy has been part. Mary, were you part of a small group training before in Warren?
No.
Okay.
No.
So this is your first kind of introduction to a small group training?
Yeah, it is.
Okay. So some of the Irene just put in the chat that volunteers keep falling off. That's one of her big challenges, and that's what we've heard too. And again, I think Katie Gray talked about that in our earlier training this morning in terms of how to cultivate volunteers, trying to be bold, and don't shy away from the ask. Just ask, and if it's a no, then it's a no, and you just kind of move on. But to really kind of get bold, and this is what we're asking, and this is the whole thing. So that's one of the things that Katie had said this morning. But the other thing that when we were doing the training before, when we had Everett Fritz doing small group training for us a few years ago, and then when we did the small group training the past 2 years, we really talked about the transition from purpose, the confirmation year, into small groups. And really, to be a successful transition, it really needs to start before confirmation. So what do I mean by that? And it's just like, so you have to kind of map out what date is your confirmation, and then back that up by a few weeks to say, okay, if we have identified a small group leader, we want that person to start coming into the purpose to get to know the students before they actually do confirmation. And there's a few different things that you can do. So first, you invite them in, you introduce them, you can do a fun thing so that there's kind of that interaction that happens. But also, the leader of the small group has all of the confirmation students' names, and can, one, pray for them for their confirmation coming up. They could also, and again, we have to be wise of the child protection things, sending messages to the students in terms of through their parents' email or things like that. So again, we know that a person cannot contact a student directly without parents being involved and teachers, but that's a way that you can just say, hey, this is who I am. I'm really looking forward to small groups. I've been praying for your confirmation. I'm going to be at your confirmation, and invite that person to their confirmation so that they're there and that they could partake of it and celebrate with them. But really, it's trying to start that relationship before confirmation so that after confirmation, you can just say, okay, now we're confirmed, you're still in purpose. So with your purpose leaders and your small group leader, you can come together and kind of map out six kind of different meetings. And they're usually kind of fun meetings. They're not the ones where you're going to tackle big issues and things like, okay, maybe we could all go in. One of the suggestions that Everett had was, let's all go to a restaurant and eat pie together. Everybody's just going to kind of have a big piece of pie and have some conversation. Or it could be, depending on what the students like, if there's some there that, like when you just said 5 guys and 1 girl, is there a sport that they would kind of like that, playing a kickball game or, wiffle ball, or just something that gets them interacting, but not so much in a way that we're going to be looking at content. But what you want to do is then start the conversation of, well, what are you interested in? What would you like to talk about? So then you can have those in your tool belt to say, oh, all of our students are interested in A, B, or C. And then we can start looking at how do we then craft those small groups around what they're interested in. So it's really trying to build that relationship. And the other thing that's very important is parent buy-in. So this is where, again, when your students are getting towards confirmation, that your small group leader is also contacting the parents, and it could be the faith formation director as well, to say, hey, this is what we're planning on doing. We're going to be doing these small groups. It's going to run through the rest of the year, from confirmation to the rest of the year. And then we're going to pick up in 10th grade as small groups. So just to kind of get the parents on board with, this is the expectation, this is what we're doing, not so much asking permission, because when we ask permission and they get the idea that, oh, they don't have to do it, they slide more towards, oh, well, then I'm not going to put myself out there. So I'm just, I'll take the easy route and just say, okay, we're not going. But really to really encourage them and to say it's an important thing for them to kind of keep developing those relationships. And then to bring in the things that we've also learned through our trainings and things, is that when students have trusted adults in their lives that they can talk to, they're much more likely to stay engaged in their faith than those who do not have trusted adults. And trusted adults are your small group leaders. They're your faith formation directors. They could be your parents. They could be so we know that the minimum of 5, if they have 5, they're like 85% more likely to stay engaged. So again, we want to cultivate that relationship and really look at that relational ministry piece. So did I miss anything, team, on the does that help you in terms of looking at how to start small groups, Mary and Becky and Tammy?
Yep.
Sorry, Tammy, not to cut you out.
Yes, that's, it kind of made me think too, hopefully we get them to come and we get them through the 10th grade year. And then is there something, Is that where it goes from small groups into something
Spiritual
else?
mentoring.
Or
Yes.
okay,
Yeah.
into the mentoring. Okay.
Yeah, so the whole rollout is, so after there's edge, then there's purpose, then there's small groups, then there's a spiritual mentoring, which is kind of like a pseudo spiritual direction kind of night where, everybody comes to the parish and there's, you got praise and worship music, adoration, a talk, and then the availability of spiritual directors so that the students can meet with a spiritual director. Now, it won't be an hour-long spiritual direction. It's more like 15 minutes. But it gets the students the opportunity to get used to talking about some of the things that is impacting their spiritual life. It could be, I saw a suicide, or a friend had committed suicide. So how do I deal with that? So those are the things where we're trying to give them the tools that they could have conversations with in their spiritual journey. And it would be with a trained spiritual director or mentor. And what I mean by that is, we will do the training when we get to that piece of the rollout. And then 12th grade is made for mission, which is trying to give experiences to our students so that they could see how they could apply their faith to their life, and also how they could become very involved in their parish, in the sense of, we never really kind of take time to teach a young person how to be a parishioner. It's just like, okay, you're confirmed and now you're a parishioner. But we don't ever say, well, but this is how you get involved and this is what you can do. And these are, so made for mission, the 12th grade year is an opportunity to get them involved in that before they go away to college, so that we can get them engaged, and hopefully they'll stay engaged when they come back from college, summers, breaks, things like that as well.
And I would even say what Deacon Steve was saying there about, what does it mean to be a parishioner? I mean, that's a great way to start off your small group. You know what I mean? And they might have no idea what that means, and they probably would stare at you blankly, you know what I mean? But then that's where it's like, well, what does it mean to be an active Catholic? Like for you all, like, what is it going to mean to be active in your faith? And they'd be like, well, maybe I'll be a lector. And it's like, okay, like, we want to support Jimmy and how he thinks he wants to be an active Catholic. Let's all go to mass and figure that out, or then talk with the lector after, or ask, oh, well, so and so's a lector. Let's ask them to next small group and just talk about like what that's done for their faith life and whatnot. So you could really have the small group. Even there's so many different types of formation that we lay out, in our packets that have been on the Padlet and stuff, if you all are aware of that, on the faith formation stuff, when we talk about human development and spiritual development and intellectual development. We have handouts that have, basically like 15 different night ideas under each of those categories, right? But you could just get really practical too with your small group of, we're here to invest in you as a parish, as young people. And this is what this is all about, to love you, to care for you. And we want to make sure that not only is this small group of a home, but also you find a home in the larger church, right? In our larger parish too. And that your gifts are being utilized and put on display, because we are so proud of you,
One of the things too is we don't want this to be so tied to a specific year. So like we had to do something when we're looking at 6th, 7th, and 8th, 9th, 10th, 11th. But we really don't, like, if you have somebody in your confirmation who's really, really on fire for small groups, then they're ready, put them in small groups. If you have somebody in your 9th grade year who's really on fire for spiritual mentoring, let them go to spiritual mentoring. We don't want to put people in a box and say, don't move out of this box, or your 10th grader might say, I want to stay in small groups for a couple of years. That's fine. So it's just trying to make it user-friendly for where the students are, but we had to kind of categorize those. So that's why we categorize them into grades. But really, it's kind of like, your students, and if they are like on fire for small groups, then they want to, hey, have at it. And again, if there's spiritual mentoring things, or maybe they're not so into spiritual mentoring, but they want made for mission with their 12. So yes, do that. The other thing is with all of this is we are changing a culture. So we have had a culture for years and years and years and years that says confirmation is graduation from my faith formation. I don't have to do anything else, which is what we're trying to we're fighting against that with everything that we have. And so if you only have one successful small group going in your parish, that is wonderful. Don't take that as, oh, that's terrible. No, that is wonderful. So do we eventually want to keep growing them? Yes. But if you can only start with one small group and it's going well, rejoice, because we know that it's a big culture shift, that trying to get people to say, well, what do you mean my faith formation is going to continue now? I have to go to more classes, trying to get away from the class mentality, looking at it more of, no, we're in relationship with each other, we're engaging with each other, we're not sitting here grading you in class or things. It's more of that. It's kind of like saying, you go hang out with your friends and have conversation. That's what this is, just in the context of it's here at the parish.
Just want to reiterate one thing that Katie said this morning. Sometimes it takes 3, 4, or 5 years to really get things to take hold too. So if you're struggling a little in the first year or two, don't give up. Just keep offering it, and eventually it's going to start to take hold. So don't feel like, oh my gosh, I only have 4 kids in my small group and they're only coming half the time. That's all right. It'll take off eventually. Just keep offering it, and if you're getting nobody, maybe rethink some of the things that you're offering to the students. And the other thing I just wanted to mention is if your student wants to bring a friend and it's not somebody from your church, that is 100% fine. Let them come, because they'll be more happy and more comfortable coming if they can bring a friend with them.
As long as they're not a serial killer.
I think what helps us is our youth group and the requirement of our purpose kids having to go once a month to the youth group. And we've had more and more parents calling me and telling me how they like this. They really like this because their kids have gotten involved and really love the youth group. So, and I think that will help moving on and not saying, okay, I'm done with this and I'm so glad I'm done with this, that, we're not going to get everybody. And we know that we have a good, strong youth group. And I think those are the kids that are going to come and then bring others with them.
Mm-hmm. And there's different ways to set up your small group. You could set it up with just the kids that are in faith formation, which is great. Just there isn't a negative connotation. But you could also set it up by affinity groups or set it up by schedules, right? That's the flexibility of small groups. So again, that kid that has a friend, what if they have 4 natural friends? It's like, well, maybe I don't fit in here, but I have 4 friends and we like to talk about Jesus. Could you find us a small group leader? Yes. And those could be questions a part of right? We do interviews as a part of the confirmation year, right? As part of diocesan policy. Those can be natural questions that are put in there. Do you have friends that are into the faith? Or when I said affinity group, maybe it's their natural friend group that they hang out with, or maybe it's all the kids that are on the swim team and they could have a small group at 6:30 a.m. in the morning before practice, and it's like, ooh, could I find a small group leader at that time? So yes, I know Deacon Steve would definitely be up at that time, right? But that's the flexibility of small group too. And I think that what Tammy is pointing out is sometimes we naturally have small groups going. Like, again, in Edge and Purpose, there's time for small group conversation. So if those kids have really clicked, I mean, that's great. That's what we hope happens, right? Throughout 4 years of these kids actually like each other and become friends in themselves. But sometimes that doesn't happen, right? And so we're at least giving them the skills of small groups in those 4 years, and we should feel free to ask them, okay, and we should all know as the people being catechists or leaders, like, okay, these people didn't click, so let me make sure that each one of these kids I'm asking, hey, I would love to set up a small group for you. Do you have friends? Do you need help? Like, how can we do this so you feel like that there's belonging in the church? And again, that might not just be kids their own age level, as Deacon Steve said. There might be, compiling a couple grade levels together to get a small group, and that's okay.
Is there a certain amount of kids that should be in like small group? You know, is there something that's no, that's way too big, that or no, you need a certain amount?
5 to 7 is the ultimate size of a small group. So that's ultimate. So can you do smaller? Yes. Larger gets a little bit more difficult because then you have students who are able to hide, meaning that, oh, I'm in it, but I don't ever say a word. So 5 to 7 is ultimate.
Mhm.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? So you might say, well, we have these small groups and we tried them and it's just everybody's not talking. Nobody's talking. Nobody is, so really what we were, what trained in Everett said, just kind of start with a whip around question where everybody has to answer or everybody has an answer. Like if they don't have to think about it, it's kind of like, what's your favorite ice cream? You know what I mean? Then you can go around in the room and do something like that. Or you can just kind of do a little other creative thing but everybody has an opinion about what you're asking. What was the last movie you saw? That starts a conversation, and even if they haven't saw one for a couple of years, at least we know that they saw a movie sometime in their lifetime. So it's just kind of like questions like that get them kind of thinking like, oh, they can't say, I don't know, or I never did that, or, things like that. So just try to use those things where they can stay engaged. If you can do anything that is connecting with their life right now. So if you know that something's going on at school, what kind of question could you ask going on in school? Oh, did you hear about so-and-so? What do you think about this? Or whatever, if it's a, situation, anything that's going on in the world that might be impacting them too, right now, Pope Francis, Pope Francis' illness, does that impact them? How do they feel, kind of thing? That, like, do they feel connected to the Pope? So things like that, they could kind of spur some conversations as they use some of those we call them whip around questions. So it's just easy conversation starters.
Mm-hmm. Another great question. There's two other categories of great questions to use. Another one is opinion questions. Like when Steve just said, hey, what do you think about this? Right? You might pull a quote, from, if it's scripture or a saint or someone, and you might, quote them, be like, well, what do you think about that? Right? Everybody has an opinion out there in the world. I think we all know that too well nowadays, but that's the thing, is everybody has an opinion, right? So even taking something that's going on or a quote or something from scripture or whatnot and coming up with opinion questions. Well, what do you think about that? That's another great way to have engagement. And then another question, that types of questions that help start conversation are, what would you do if, right? So say I was walking along the road and I found a wallet. It had $1,000 in it. There was a driver's license in it. So I could get it back to this person, but also, my family, needs food, and this would really help us out and get us through a pinch. So what would you do if that was you? Would you feed your family? Would you return the money? What would you do? Right. So kind of those situations and those scenarios. And there used to be, I think that the TV show is still on, and that was when I had a youth group. Sometimes like those little clips from that TV show is called What Would You Do If?
What
It
would
was
you
on
do?
ABC. Yeah. And we just play a little clip, and you'd see a lot of people and it's like, like, what would you do? And it was a great way to incorporate, maybe, again, if we were talking about Catholic social teaching or morality, because they ranged so much. So those are other good questions to put ourselves in the scenario. Even in scripture, right? We do that in prayer all the time. If we do, imaginative prayer with the scripture, right? We put ourselves in the prodigal son's shoes, right? Or whatever. It's like, well, what would you do if, that was you? So those are some great ways to spur some conversation and have them banter back and forth rather than you being the holder of the conversation. They just keep looking back to you as a teacher, that it's like, okay, did I answer right? Did I answer it at all? That's not the point of a small group, right? It's about dialogue and deeper conversation.
So any other questions that you would have? Oh, you're muted, Becky.
No, I can't think of anything. I think I'm just kind of getting excited. I've never done anything like this. I've worked with kids practically all my life. And so when I was asked to do this after prayer, and I just think it's the right thing for me to do, and I do want to do it. And I do seem to have a connection with kids. Don't ask me how, why, or whatever. I think it's a gift from God sometimes, other times maybe not. But I'm just kind of looking forward to learning and being with these kids and wanting to share my love for the faith and hopefully giving them something that they can continue to, make them think, hey, it's okay. You don't, I'm not weird or odd that, and it's something that they can take with them for the rest of their lives.
Yeah. You said
Sometimes-
two very important things. You said, one, I'm excited about this, and two, you prayed about this. Those are phenomenal ways to enter this work. So kudos to you. Thanks for that response. But also, in March we're having an in-person training. So if you can come for the
Yes,
in-person training, that would be great.
Yes,
Good.
we'll be here.
All right.
And once again, this is ideal down the road, right? Because again, the win is having one successful small group, right? But if you do have from year to year, we have one, we have two. Again, there's no reason not to bring them together, as Tammy was saying at OLP, like they could all still go to youth group together, right? And then small group those conversations. Or if you have those 10th and beyond graders doing small group, could they go all on a mission trip together? Could all of those go on a retreat together? Absolutely, right? So that it's something that they can all discern together, or you could have all your small groups, put out as a question, hey, what do you guys think if we did this? Or, there was an example of a parish that they kind of had a sports day or, tournament where all the small groups like battled against each other, right? And it ended in a big bonfire and trophy, right? And these small groups kind of went on and on where they like kind of made them like Hogwarts things except saints, right? So then just kids would get invited under these small group houses, year after year after they got confirmed. So it was just kind of a cool thing. So again, those are like the very exciting possibilities of what we're talking about, where it really extends into a bigger parish culture than I think some of what we're struggling with right now is like how do we get the kids here, and how do we get the parent buy-in. And I think the sooner we do that, and again, we're talking to two successful parishes that are doing this right now, right? So this is really preaching to the choir. But the sooner we get it on the parents' radar, the sooner we get it on the kids' radar, that confirmation year is like, listen, this is the start of a lifelong journey. And this is how we're already going to start this journey this year, is not just by doing these classes, right? We're going to get you into a small group before that even happens, where you can start really delve into what is Jesus calling me to and whatnot. And a way to do that for parents, for parent buy-in, is when you have those kids in Edge, maybe ask some of the parents, would you guys like to do a small group together? While your parents are here in Edge, would you like to go in another room and do a Bible study together or something like that? Because if those parents start building community together and they experience the fruit of a small group, then you're going to have people automatically are like, I want my kids in a small group, right? Like I see the value of community here. Because again, you already have them, it's like just do Walmart pickup on your way home. You don't have to go to Walmart during the Edge time, right? Or whatever. So those are some tactics that we can do, because the more I think that we're discovering is what we can get our parents to be witnesses about to their kids, that's going to be impactful. So that's where we keep communicating as a church. We want to equip you and empower you to be witnesses. So like you're going to do this before your kids, and that's so exciting, right? And you're going to be able to speak into that reality, and they're going to care about your voice way more than ours, right? So I think the more we can keep telling that to our parents, and it's like, we're trying to equip you, in the faith. And this is the way that we want to do it this year. We want to support you and make you experts. I think hopefully, again, these are the moments where traction will start.
Well, and one of the things too, to kind of answer the volunteer shortage, is that if you see that as your small groups are going and you have phenomenal small group, like kids in your small groups, and they're going through the thing, to ask them to come back to lead a small group so they could start back in helping with Edge and they can help in Purpose. But it's a great kind of like chain reaction type of thing. It's like if they're having a good experience through Edge and Purpose small groups, and then invite them back, it's just this wonderful circle that you could create where you're getting volunteers from people, students who are excited about it, went through it, experienced it, and could really help. And, we know that young people relate to young people. Sometimes they relate to older people better, but, so it's like that. It's just kind of like how can the parish help itself by volunteers, by, kind of like the student giving back. It's how do you be a parishioner? Well, you give back. This is how you can give back.
Yeah, that's actually, we have already put that in place. We have one boy that got confirmed last year and is now back in and helping with our, the small group part of Purpose, and it is highly successful. They really relate to him because he's their age.
Yeah. We have a person who was confirmed last year as well, who now that he's a lector, he comes in, volunteers at being a chaperone at some of the things. He was at the confirmation retreat this year, actually, even though he made the confirmation last year, he came to help out. So those are ways that our students who are being impacted by what they're experiencing can really be great spokespeople for the younger kids coming through. Any other questions? Now, we could give you 20 free minutes right here. So we could give you this gift of saying, if you have no other questions or things, we could give you this wonderful gift. But what you need to do is use it in something that's going to give you life. If you're going to say, I'm just going to go back to work and to my desk and things like that, then we're going to stay right on here and talk. No, but really, I don't want to cut short. But if you don't have any other questions, we can wrap up. I would also say we're always available. So if something comes to you after this and you see something else, watching a training or whatever, don't hesitate to reach out. We really want to be supportive. So.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thanks for being here.
Thanks, everyone.
All right.
Thank
Thanks.
you.
Thank you.
Peace out.
Yep. See ya.
Bye.
Tammy.